Hello, welcome to IDDTalks here at ADA University. My name is Anastasia Lavrina, and now I'm joined by a very distinguished guest from Canada, Mr. Robert Cutler, who is the Director, Energy Security Program and NATO Association of Canada. Warm welcome.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you.
Mr. Cutler, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining IDDTalks. So, recent tensions in the Middle East and the ongoing situation definitely affected the global energy market. The blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and the implications for the countries in the region and far beyond. So, let me start with a basic question. How serious is the ongoing situation, taking into account all of those latest developments and the current risks to oil and gas supply to the global energy market?
Well, the risk is serious, but it has to be defined correctly because the world is not facing a simple shortage of oil or gas. It is facing a choke point problem. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the central passages of the global energy system. In 2025, almost 20 million barrels per day of oil moved through it. Available alternative crude export capacity through Saudi and Emirati routes is only about 3.5 to 5.5 million barrels per day. So if insecurity persists around Hormuz, then the markets cannot simply redirect all flows elsewhere because the gap is too large. So the issue is not only price, but although price is the first signal, the deeper issue is physical reliability. If ships cannot move, or if insurance becomes too expensive, or if producers shut in output as a precaution, then the market will move from price volatility to actual supply stress. Recent market estimates have put a very large volume of Gulf crude output offline, mainly because of precautionary shutdowns and stock management rather than direct physical damage to oil fields. And this makes a difference because if the strait is safe again, then recovery can be relatively quick. But if insecurity persists, then the vulnerability remains. So my answer is that the risk is high, but it is still conditional. If Hormuz remains open and traffic normalizes, then the shock can be contained. But if insecurity persists, then markets will begin to price not only the loss of barrels, but also the loss of confidence in one of the world's essential energy routes.
Mr. Cutler, if insecurity around Strait of Hormuz persists, what alternative routes can be considered to help stabilize the energy market?
Well, the first alternatives are the routes that bypass Hormuz inside the Gulf itself. These are Saudi Arabia's east-west pipeline to the Red Sea and the UAE route to Fujairah. The routes make a difference, but they cannot fully replace Hormuz. They are a buffer and not a substitute for the full volume usually moving through the strait. For Europe, the answer is broader. Europe will look to LNG, Norwegian pipeline gas, North African supply, storage policy, demand management, and pipeline gas from the Caspian. The current situation shows why storage has again become so important, because Europe is not in the same emergency that it faced in 2022, although its basic security problem has not disappeared. Gas storage, LNG access, route reliability, and long-term contracts are all significant issues, but the practical lesson is that energy security now depends upon redundancy. A secure system cannot depend too heavily on one supplier, one sea passage, one fuel type, or one contract structure. So Europe's future energy policy will have to combine LNG flexibility, pipeline reliability, storage discipline, and faster renewable deployment. These are all parts of the same security problem.
Mr. Cutler, Azerbaijan has already become the reliable energy partner for many countries, and it's now delivering gas to 16 countries in the world, 10 of which are members of the European Union. So what about Azerbaijan, and particularly about the Southern Gas Corridor in this situation with the Strait of Hormuz blockade in the Middle East?
Well, indeed, Azerbaijan becomes more strategically important, but we should not exaggerate this too much because Azerbaijan will not replace the Gulf. It will not replace Russia by itself. Its significance is that it is a reliable Caspian producer and transit partner already connected to Europe through the Southern Gas Corridor. So it has a real role, not a hypothetical role. For Europe, this is important because Azerbaijani gas reaches European markets by pipeline and does not pass through Hormuz. So this strengthens European diversification geographically and politically. Indeed, the European Union recognized this in its 2022 energy memorandum with Azerbaijan, which aimed to double the capacity of the Southern Gas Corridor to deliver at least 20 billion cubic meters annually to the EU by 2027. The same memorandum also linked gas cooperation with methane reduction, renewables, and broader energy transition. So Azerbaijan's role is not only about emergency gas, it is also about long-term connectivity between the Caspian region and Europe. So the Southern Gas Corridor can play a larger role, but several conditions have to come together. First, there must be sufficient upstream gas available for export after Azerbaijani's own needs and regional commitments are taken into account. Second, the pipeline capacity has to expand. TAP already has triggered a first level of expansion with additional annual capacity from 2026, and its initial capacity can be expanded further in stages. At the same time, third, European buyers must provide long-term demand signals. Political interest alone does not finance infrastructure. Contracts finance infrastructure. This also brings Caspian cooperation back into focus. If Europe wants more energy from the Caspian, then Azerbaijan matters not just as a producer, but as a connector. This includes possible future Turkmen gas, electricity links, green energy corridors, and stronger coordination amongst Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and the European markets. So the present crisis actually brings these discussions to urgency and puts them further up on the political agenda.
Mr. Cutler, looking ahead to the next 12 months, do you expect a temporary turbulence or a structural reshaping of the global energy order?
Well, the best answer to your question is both. The immediate turbulence may be temporary. If Hormuz remains open and the attacks do not resume, then Gulf production can recover and lost input may return within months if logistics, tanker availability, and reservoir conditions permitted. So it would be wrong to assume that every disruption automatically becomes permanent. But the political lesson will not disappear even when prices ease because the larger trend is structural. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, governments have returned energy security to the center of strategic policy. The old assumption was that global markets could usually resolve supply problems if the price was right, but that assumption is not as strong as it used to be. Governments ask where the energy comes from, which routes it uses, how many choke points it crosses, whether storage is adequate, and whether the supplier is politically reliable. So over the next 12 months, I would expect two things at the same time. Markets may partly stabilize if the Middle East crisis eases, but governments will continue to redesign energy strategies around security, redundancy, and trusted connectivity. This will increase European interest in LNG, storage, renewables, and secure pipeline corridors. It will also raise Azerbaijan's strategic value, provided expectations remain realistic. Because Azerbaijan's role is not to replace every vulnerable source of supply, but rather its role is to strengthen Europe's portfolio of reliable routes and partners at a moment when route security has again become central to the energy system.
Absolutely. Mr. Cutler, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining IDDTalks today.
Pleasure. Pleasure to talk with you anytime.